I'm sorry. I think it's the same. Yeah. Well, no, not the same word as him. Sustainable IT and then immigration. Actually, immigration on top, then sustainable IT, then KS.
So immigration, T, case in order.
Okay, so ready? First on immigration, he doesn't get to this advantage, this disad with enough time. Unfortunately, the disadvantage turns the case. First, the Hertzberg 2012 card indicates that the only way that we can achieve true sustainable agriculture is first to reform the immigration system. This means that there is no way that NYC is going to be able to solve back on the whole for any of their impacts in a world in which they're not creating true sustainability. But second, I would always argue that when my Hertzberg 2012 card indicates that immigration reform is the only way to solve back for food security in the United States, that means that I'm always going to be able to turn back advantage one, and I'm going to have the bigger impact. Remember, the only thing he's going to be able to solve back are the people who use fish as their primary resource, but rather, I'm going to solve back for the food security of all agriculture in the United States. But second, when he doesn't get to the impact, I would always argue that that's devastating for the 1AC. The impact of the disadvantage is going to be global war and complete instability. That's always going to outweigh the impacts of the 1AC in a world in which there's absolutely no mitigation. If I mitigate the impacts of the 1AC even a little bit, that means that you don't vote there because the disad is always going to have a bigger impact. I'm also going to outweigh on magnitude, especially when I'm interrogating how many people he's going to be able to solve back for overfishing, as well as how many people he's going to be able to solve back for starvation. In a world in which people are dying, it doesn't matter if they're starving. Now let's go to sustainable agriculture. His answers here are a little bit abysmal. His only idea is that this happens only outside of the United States where there are unsustainable practices. However, this is not true. The evidence that I read out of the shell is talking about the United States specifically. The Moore 2012 card talks about Monsanto patents in the United States, as well as the FAO, which are all United States conventions. But second, I want you to extend Greenpeace International, which I read on case, which indicates that agriculture is not sustainable in the United States. When I'm giving you two pieces of evidence, which indicates that in the United States specifically, we have a lack of sustainability, that means that his eye meats don't function. And there are a few reasons why you prefer my cards over his blanket articulations. First, this is policy debate. You should always create more impact on the actual evidentiary impact because that's what policy making is about. Policymakers don't create ideas based on the blanket assertions, but rather based on the impacts of actual scientific studies. But second, I would always argue that this is more educational. Don't allow him to make blanket assertions, but rather you should prioritize actual evidence so that we create a precedent that judges in NFALD are unwilling to vote for non-educational arguments. But third, I would always argue that you should protect the forum. The reason that LD was created was a pseudo-evidentiary debate. In a world in which we completely throw away the idea of evidence, then that means that the forum of LD is null and void. But now, he can make no new IDs in the 2AR. This is unfair to the 1NC, especially in a world in which I can't respond back. So, in a world in which the only thing that he leverages this entire debate on is the ID, that means that he gets no access to my standards, which means you can extend across Brightline, which my evidence indicates is going to be key to education. I would always argue that's going to be the biggest impact in the round, insofar as it has implications in the actual idea of debate as a whole. But second, you can extend across source superiority. This means that this is the only way in which we can have real policy debate when we're talking about the actual actors of the resolution. But now let's go to reasonability. One, you don't employ reasonability. This invites judge intervention because you have to decide what a reasonable interpretation is. I would always argue that judge intervention is bad for debate because it takes the route out of the hands of the actual policymakers and invites a third party, which is not key to actual policy making. This kills activity participation because people are unwilling to debate in a form where they don't have any real say over what the outcomes around are. But his second thing on the voters is the red light, green light, and you have to be 100% certain. However, one, I would always argue that first, you are 100% certain, especially when I'm having the preponderance of evidence and his IPs just don't function. But second, you have to have a high propensity. In a world in which you are 90% sure or 80% sure that he is not topical, you should pull the trigger in order to make sure that you check back against non-topical affirmatives in the future. It's not what you do here, but rather what you justify. And you shouldn't justify non-topicality. But third, you should evaluate this like a disadvantage with impacts. In a world in which the negative is going to be able to control the impacts of the T debate, then that means that you always vote with me, especially when articulating that education is going to be the biggest impact in the round. But now let's get to the case proper. On solvency, there's one impact that I want you to flow across. First, subsidies are not going to provide for the expansion. My cards talk about how when the government intervenes in aquaculture specifically, we don't see an expansion in aquaculture. His only argument here is that the case is not expanding technology. However, the case is an increase in government intervention in order to allow for more aquaculture. But my cards say that empirically this has not created any sort of solvency in the market, then that means that this is a reason for you to reject the 1AC on face. But now let's go to the advantage one. First, he gives you absolutely no response to my argument that overfishing is sustainable now. That means that when the status quo is going to be able to solve that, there's absolutely no reason why you vote for the 1AC uniquely. But second, he doesn't give you a real answer as to how he's going to be able to solve that for aquaculture actually resulting to an increase in biodiversity, an increase in overfishing. My cards are very clear that when we employ aquaculture techniques, that increases nitrogen, which actually causes more fish to die than overfishing. This means that when I'm straight up turning advantage one, then you never vote here. But on advantage two, first, I tell you that aquaculture is going to lead to a decrease in food security. However, his only response here is that the case is not advocating for rapid introduction. But I would always argue that when the case responds to non-market forces that increase aquaculture when they wouldn't have, then he's going to check back food security. And there's no brink here, so you always go to the disaster first.